Timothy Ong from Brunei, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, we can talk about the ASEAN way in many ways. But when all is said and done, the ASEAN way is about only one thing. It is about achieving unity. It is another way of saying, we are different, but let not our differences stand in the way of us working together. It is another way of saying, we are different, but let us try to understand those differences. Let us engage each other in terms of how we can accommodate these differences. If ASEAN was like Europe, we would not need the ASEAN way. If ASEAN was like Europe, we would have the kind of institutions that Europe has built. The European Parliament, the European Court of Justice. If ASEAN was like Europe, most of us may be prepared to consider surrendering part of our sovereignty to become under a regional authority. But ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN is not Europe. And however much we may desire for us to be like Europe, the fact remains that our realities are not European realities. Now we may argue about how much similarity there has to be for regional integration. Whichever way you argue, there has to be a degree of similarity for nations to be prepared to surrender their sovereignty, to come under something like what the European Union has. Consider the fact that the members of the European Union share a common cultural heritage, while the members of ASEAN are completely culturally diverse. Consider the fact that all 25 member nations of the European Union are predominantly Christian. Consider the fact that ASEAN is completely diverse. Consider how impractical it is to ask nations as culturally diverse as this collection to surrender their sovereignty in the name of the European model. Consider the fact that all 25 nations that are members of the European Union are basically more or less industrialized economies. Consider the fact that ASEAN contains one developed economy, a number of newly industrializing economies, and a number of very poor, recently developing economies. We would argue strongly that we cannot forget the ASEAN way, however boring that it may be, because it is based on the realities of our region. And we must argue strongly that the European model of integration is definitely not the way forward for ASEAN. Thank you.